do a little intro. We're inside at the beginning. This is TPQC, or Altman's Blue. If you're wondering about it, it's the bottom. The top is a shulkin that I grafted on it. This is the best rootstock in Arizona that I've found. Very nice and blue and pretty, but the thorns can be a little difficult to work with for grafting, but it gets the nicest growth. And if you were interested in TPQC, this is the video for you, as we're about to go over the history behind it. And it's a very convoluted, complicated one, so buckle up, stay tuned, and grab a morning coffee with me as we go on outside and check out TPQC, aka Altman's Blue. Today's a busy one. Got the coffee, some morning light hitting, and the pressure cookers are already rolling, making sterile water inside. You know it's gonna be busy when I got pressure cookers going before I even got my coffee in me. But that's not Altman's Blue. That's a variegated. Here we are. Got a little Altman's Blue right here. Now I cut this arm. Ooh, we got a pup coming in. Look at that. Look at that. Cut him. He was probably another half a foot or so. And I've cut a couple arms down here, but you can see it's a very basic Pachanoi, right? It gets kind of long thorns for a Pachanoi, almost borderline Peruvian, but not quite Peruvian. Now we're gonna get into why there was some controversy, and people thought this one was a Peruvian for a while. I thought this was a Peruvian because of how blue it gets. Most Pachanoi are not gonna get blue like this. Now here's a good example. I have Ogun right here. This is Ogun, I'm not even gonna pronounce that, but one of the famous clones from Trout's Notes. And you can see it's nice and green. Look at this. I'll even get out of the sun a little bit. It does not blue anywhere compared to that. Nice and blue, nice and green. Now, Pachanoi usually stay green. Peruvians and Bolivian torches, Burgesses, will get blues. So, because of that blue coloration, people just thought it was a Peruvian. There's not really any other Peruvian traits to it. The Peruvians really like to get big areoles that are all fuzzy, and they usually get some big spines coming out of them. Look, here's a seedling one. So you can see these areoles in there are nice and fuzzy, and then they'll get a nice main spine protruding, and then you get what's called radial spines on the sides there. So you can see there's the 4 radial spines, and you have a main spine going up. That down spine might be a main spine, or it might be just a big radial. Here's a good one of some radials and then the one major big spine. So I want you to notice there's not that. We'll look at some more mature growth because I got like a 20-foot one in the ground, so we'll look at that too. But just keep that in mind, and then keep in mind how big and fuzzy it is that all those spines are coming out of. You see how nice and fuzzy and white that shit is? Sorry, I'm not holding it too steady. We just don't get that. It's just not quite as big and fuzzy. Now, this dude that I was just showing you is a seedling compared to that full growth. So I'm very confident this is not a Peruvian. This is 100% a Pachanoi. If not a Pachanoi, maybe it has like a little bit of Peruvian in it, and just none of the other traits show through other than blue. But yeah, you can kind of see where it got the name Altman's Blue. So now, let's talk about the little confusion here as we go on to another stand that I got, and why it was called Altman's Blue, and then why it's also called TPQC. And it's known to a special gentleman called Nitrogen in the San Pedro collecting community back in 2012. So yeah, let's go look at another cactus and go over that story. Oh yeah. Look at that. This is for the giveaway. Please subscribe to the channel. Like if you want the content and you want more giveaways and comment what clone you want me to go over the history of next. What are you interested in? I just cut this TPQC right there from a big old mama stand. And let me tell you, boy howdy, did it leave a tingle on my tongue. Boy, does it smell exactly like I want it to smell like, if you catch my drift. This is a beautiful cactus. Even if you have your own, it's definitely worth getting a TPQC. All right, now back to the history. All right, here we are on the mother plant. It's really hard to conceptualize the size, so I put a shovel down. That is a standard sized shovel. Now this guy is huge. A little pro tip for anybody who's ever trying to take pictures, man. Always have something in the reference, because this dude looks normal sized until I put a large ass shovel in there. Look at that compared to an arm you would buy. Now this is my big ass TPQC. Absolutely monstrous. I bought him from the big box store over at Home Depot, and this leads into our story about nitrogen and how the name became two names, and you got TPQC and Altman's Blue and all that. So without going into the backstory yet, I will read the backstory. What I did was I got him from Home Depot, and he must have been this fat arm right here all the way up to about right there when I bought it. It was probably like 2 feet and thick as crap. And I put him in the ground, and we got, this is all new. There's 4 huge arms, and then it's split into 2. Now what you want to notice is, look at this color compared to this one. It really loves to blue in the shade. I don't know why. I've been told, people have argued with me on Reddit, you know, because the second you fucking post anything, somebody's gonna, actually, that's not really true. So somebody came on Reddit, was telling me the bluing's because it's trying to shield itself from the rays of the sun. I don't really care why it's bluing. I'm just observing that it fucking doesn't do it in the sun, but does it in the shade. Even on the same clone, look at the difference of blues. It's just an undeniable fact that the shade ones will blue more. And so if you have a TPQC and you really want it to blue, plant that bitch somewhere in the shade, and look at that. Earlier I said this was a basic clone. Should not have said that, because the fact that a Pachanoi blues this much is actually very impressive. But it's just basic in the sense of the spines on it. Look at those notches, those little birds flying, right? All right, so I got him from Home Depot, and this is when I started to realize that there was 2 names on it, and it is mostly due to a gentleman named Nitrogen. Now you may have heard of Nitrogen because he also has a clone called Nitrogen's TPM. I don't know if this is Nitrogen's TPM. I feel like it is, but I'm not as confident with renaming that one. TPQC will stick with for now. Nitrogen was known because back in the day, back in like 2014, maybe 2012, he bought San Pedro from a big box store. I believe it was Target. And he realized that it was not PC. Now you young bucks might not realize this, but back in the day, it was very hard to get anything that was non-PC from a big box store. So hence why when I found this at Home Depot, I bought it instantly and put that shit in the ground. Now this was probably like 5-6 years ago that I found that big TPQC. I have not seen them since. So don't go to Home Depot thinking you're just gonna find it. You know, it's actually really rare. But when you do find it, buy it immediately, because look at that thing. Now, Nitrogen got his from a big box store as well. And when he got it from the box store, he brought it home and started to grow it like for over a decade and distribute it. And this is the first instance that we see online of it called TPQC. Now, let me go look at another plant that we have and tell you guys why I got that TPQC name. All right, so we got our post pulled up from Lauren Smith on Facebook. Shout out to the Facebook squad. Everybody over there is usually very noteworthy and sharing a lot of detailed information on these clones, so it's always good to check them out. It goes TPQC, Tricho Series Pachanoi quasi-crest. The TPQC is a non-PC Pachanoi type that grew crested after an apparent snail attack. Maybe it's genetic in there somewhere, and the snail attack caused it to come out. Or maybe it's purely from infection. Regardless, it's a beautiful Pachanoi though, and I haven't taken good care of it in these past couple of years. That post comes from Nitrogen, who made this clone famous back all the way in 2012, 9/18/12. The next post is from 2/8/13, so a couple months later. Well, it went full crestana, and those sections keep growing crestana, but it also put out some columnar sections which continued to grow. I'm curious to see if the TPQC times TPM cross puts out more mutants than the other crosses in which TPM was the father. If so, then I guess I can deduce that TPQC's behavior is at least partially genetic rather than some weird mutation brought on by slug infection or whatever. Now, when he made that post, something really cool was happening in Nitrogen's garden, and he actually had a TPM flowering at the same time as TPQC. So he did make the cross, and that's one of the famous crosses you'll see floating around nowadays. That comes all the way back from 2013. Now, almost a full year later, we get our next post from Nitrogen regarding this, and it goes, yeah, the one I have didn't have any crested in it either for years. I think it developed the trait due to a snail attack rather than genetics, which is why I term it the quasi-cristata. The N1 times TPQC cross has so far not turned up any mutants either, which leads me to feel confident in the snail attack explanation, even though they're gorgeous little phenos in their own right. So that was from Nitrogen. These are all posts from Nitrogen. And now here we have another one. Let me see if I can find the date. I don't think I can find the date. This one's later. He goes, I'm pretty sure that Altman's is indeed the same clone as my TPQC. He's talking about Altman's Blue, which is what I'm talking about as well, and I agree with him. The quote goes on to say, which in the Connoisseur Hybrids 2012 thread, I just described as a non-PC Pachanoi type. I found the TPQC around 10 years ago at the nursery in a local Target. At the time, I recall thinking it was an unusual find because here in the US, the hardware stores pretty much exclusively carry PC Pachanoi. Don't we all know that, Nitrogen? So, I snapped the thing up and have been growing it ever since. It's a beautiful plant, generally vigorous and gets quite fat. Now those characteristics I've also noticed, and it's why I love using it for my graft stock. The quote goes on to say, Zelly, who's a famous guy in the cactus world for misplant, planted a cutting of my TPQC clone in his yard as well. He planted it just a few years back, but that thing is spectacular. It's like 10 feet tall. He goes on to tell Zelly to post a picture. If it is indeed a species different than a Pachanoi, be it Macrogonus or Huascuensis or whatever, I'm open to renaming it. It basically looks Pachanoi to me. If you look at other Pachanoi types from Peru, there are all sorts of them that have these intermediate length spines and so forth, and generally sort of a Peruvian Macrogonus look. This one seems to be on the continuum somewhere. But again, I am no expert by the stretch on Tricho series identification. What would people prefer it to be? And then he asks everybody, here's a couple pictures of mine and some of the notable crosses he did, TPQC times TPM and 1 times TPQC. Now, the one where Bob Baker, the great cactus collector Bob Baker, comes in and shares his side of the story. This was 5 years ago. According to the story, this is Bob Baker. According to the story I got from Nitrogen at the time, was TPQC was sourced from a Target store as a normal, albeit maybe 9 to 11 ribbed Pachanoi, which is abnormal in the Pachanoi world. He gave a cutting to a friend, which eventually found its way to Misplant's garden. Nitrogen's plant was attacked by a snail, causing it to go crestata. At the same time, Nitrogen had a fully crestata plant, TPC, that grew a revert and flowered. He also had TPM plant, which he gave a cutting to a friend and found its way to Miss Plant's garden. For a while, Miss Plant was confused on the true identity of TPC and TPQC until nitrogen set him straight. The plant being watered above is nitrogen's TPC. TPC equals Peruvianus, TPM equals Peruvianus, but TPQC equals Pachanoi, Bob Baker says. TPQC in Miss Plant's garden has never been attacked by snails, and it never will be, so it will not go cristata, and does not produce cristata or monstrose seedlings. Nitrogen's TPC mother plant was a pollen donor to a clone of nitrogen TPM, resulting in one small fruit. So, some of the summaries on this. Very, very fat, thick, blue Pachanoi that thrives here in Arizona. That's something I added. And is one of the best grass stalks around. It got two different names because of the quasi-crest that happened on the snail damage. But regardless of what you choose to call it, Altman's blue or TPQC, it is one of the most pretty, bluest Pachanois you'll ever find. And it's got a little bit of spice to it. And this is why it is one of my favorites in the garden, and why I have so many damn other plants of it. So, yeah, I want to thank you all for coming by and learning about the backgrounds of these and some of the cool cactus. And I hope that you guys get good luck in the giveaway. Please make sure to enter and have a good day. I hope you all take care. Much love here from Sonoran Spores. Alright, so don't hurt your brain on this, but I wanted to throw up some bonus footage of TPQC as a rootstock. Look at this Bruce's dragon. Isn't that thing impressive? Let me know if you're looking at the left one, the right one, or the middle one, Booker, the Cactus Prince. Thank you.